So dear friends, we are here today, month of February. As you know, the weekend, 24th, 25th of February is almost the end of February. But what's important is a beautiful month. It's considered a month where the winter almost closes, and so it's not so harsh. Summer that begins and winter that closes. February, the word februm from the Latin language means purification. Purification. For some of us, the month of February is not only purification but also a romantic month, they call it. You know, the Valentine's Day comes on the 14th of February, falls on the 14th of February, and this year it happened to be also the day of our Ash Wednesday. You know, that some people were perturbed. Can these two things go together, Valentine and Ash Wednesday? Perhaps looks little incongruous as such. But then when someone asked me, I said, perhaps that's the best day. Because for us Christians, Jesus Christ is the best Valentine. You know, when we speak of love, it's not only the physical, the mental or the emotional love that we speak of. Love and sacrifice go together. And if we try to analyze who sacrificed most for mankind, perhaps for each one of us, we have to say it was Jesus. And so Jesus is our best Valentine, and the Ash Wednesday, or perhaps the whole month of the Lenten season, means for us a season of love, a season that we come home. Lord, I'm coming home. A beautiful month for us also as the Lenten season. So dear friends, I go to the Gospel and the readings. May I say that perhaps this Gospel and the readings are beautiful. I was just tempted to think of that, what's called The Agony and the Ecstasy. There's a beautiful novel. It's about Michelangelo. The novel is written by Irving. And this particular man, when he makes this novel, he creates a beautiful character of Michelangelo in his agony and the ecstasy. And the words themselves, as you know, this is a human emotions that comes out. And Michelangelo, he struggled a lot, especially at Sistine Chapel, at that height, to paint exactly, almost bending backwards. It must be agony. But when he and the others saw it, it was the ecstasy. Why do I refer to this? Because today we have this incident in the life of Jesus, what we call the transfiguration of Jesus. In the Gospel of Mark, chapter 9, verse 2 to 10 speaks about this, what we call the transfiguration, which happens on a mountain. Jesus takes the disciples to the mountain, Mount Horeb, that we call it, the Mount Tabor, perhaps. And it's interesting to see that most of the beautiful experiences of Jesus and also many saints, many ascetics, they go to a mountain. They go high up, because the mountain is also considered to be a little closer to the skies, to the heavens, to God Himself. And so Jesus takes the disciples to the high mountain. In fact, even the first reading, the reading from the book of Genesis, chapter 22, also speaks about this mountain experience of Abraham, who takes his son Isaac to the mountain to sacrifice him. And so let me just sort of analyze or scrutinize the readings for you. First of all, as I said, the mountain experience that is needed for each one of us to go away from the normal humdrum of our life to a little isolated, to a little perhaps elevated place in order to experience silence, in order to experience closeness to Jesus. We also need it. And for us, the Lenten season could be experience on the mount, as it were, to realize so many things that are happening in our life and take a break also. The second thing that we can analyze and find out, that Jesus takes the disciples to the mountains. As we know that he is transfigured before them. He takes his three disciples, Peter, James and John, and he is transfigured before them. What's the meaning of transfiguration? As the word itself denotes, to be figured into something else, another countenance that the disciples experience of Jesus shining like the white. And they cannot imagine, their eyes are almost blinded, and they get an experience. But what's more important is the experience of Jesus on this mountain, the voice that is heard from heaven, "This is my beloved Son. This is my beloved Son." And listen to him. A beautiful directive that God the Father gives, first of all, acknowledging Jesus as his Son, and listen to him. Meaning to say, Jesus perfectly does the will of God in his life. Doing the will of God was his sort of most important thing for him. My flesh is to do the will of God. And in that sense, the will of God is the fulfillment of everything that God has in mind for him. Let me connect a little with the first reading of the Genesis, where Abraham also takes his son, and because God has ordered him to take his son to sacrifice on this mountain. And Abraham must have found himself in a very terrible situation. The son that is given to him, as we know from a little beyond the scripture readings that we have of today, little earlier readings, that he was a son, a miracle son, that he was born to Abraham and Sarah at a very old age. It's an impossible age, and therefore he was a miracle son. And perhaps the prefiguration or the consolation of everything that he has suffered all his life. He wanted a son, he wanted a land, and God gave him. But then to say that, to sacrifice his own son, must have been the most terrible experience for him. But Abraham takes his son to the mountain, and we are told that Isaac asks his father, "You have brought the fire, you have brought the firewood, you have brought perhaps something that to light, etc. But where is the victim? Where is the victim?" And Abraham replies, "God will provide. God will provide." And Abraham had faith in God. And so when he is about to sacrifice him, as you know from the reading of today, the angel stops him and says, God is satisfied with his will, or rather complete surrender to God's will. So that's the most important aspect of this transfiguration experience, that Jesus submits to the will of the Father. The thirdly, I spoke about the agony and the ecstasy. Jesus is preparing his disciples for the agony. What's the agony? The agony of the cross, which the disciples don't want. St. Peter himself tells Jesus, "Let these thoughts not come to you." And Jesus tells him, "Get behind me, Satan, because without the cross, without the suffering, I will not be able to gain victory." It's as good as saying, there is no gain without the pain. Though the disciples are not ready to listen to it, this is the agony of Jesus. That first of all, that he has to suffer. In Gethsemane, in the Garden of Gethsemane, where he cries out, "Father, if it's your will, take this chalice away from me, but not my will, your will be done." It's constantly the will of God, the will of the Father, that is focused in all the, perhaps his experience, spiritual experience of Jesus. So the agony we speak of. And fourthly, the ecstasy. Because Jesus tells his disciples, do not mention about this incident to anybody else till the Son of Man is raised up. the Son of Man is resurrected. And so the experience of resurrection. And so we catapulate, as it were, beautifully these four elements in the transfiguration of Jesus. First of all, as I said, to be aware that they are on the mountain, a spiritual experience closer to God. Secondly, to experience the will of God and to be subservient, to accommodate ourselves, to submit ourselves to God's will. And thirdly, the agony part that Jesus has in mind, that will come in future, perhaps not understood by the disciples, but that is also part of the Jesus experience of what called the kerygma, the suffering, the death and the resurrection of Jesus. And finally, the resurrection of Jesus itself. There is a beautiful thought also in the second reading of today. St. Paul, he speaks to Romans and says, if God can be for us, who can be against us? When you surrender yourself fully to God, your thoughts are God's thoughts, and God's plans are your plans. And therefore, if God is totally for us, who can be against us? Nobody can touch us. Nobody can harm us, because even if they harm, even if they touch us, we know that we have surrendered ourselves to God's will, and therefore God will not abandon us. So, my dear brothers and sisters, it's very important for us to be in the will of God. And therefore today's reading put us very specially that God loves us, He is with us. St. Paul would say that not only God did not spare His own Son, but gave Him up for us. If that is the case, will He not also perhaps graciously give us all things that we want, provided we do the will of God in our life? I now take you to perhaps for the particular seminar or an assembly that I attended, what's called the International Meeting of the Migrants at Manila in the Philippines. I was fortunate to be invited along with 10 other members, 5 of us who are bishops, the bishops of different regions who are dealing with migrants. In Bangalore, as there are so many migrants that have come, and we have also had the experience of what we call the Manipur migrants, the children. I was also invited, so about 10 of us, we went to Manila together from the 12th to the 17th of February in Manila. And what did we discuss there? What did we listen there? It was a very learning experience for us, because Philippines is a country full of migrants. Perhaps migrants in the sense that the people from Philippines have gone out. They have gone mostly as domestic workers, as ship workers, as skilled and unskilled laborers, and almost half the country is almost out of the country itself. And for migrants, as in India, as in other country, it's not a very happy experience to be away from the family. Migrants among the Philippines who are mostly women, at a young age they leave their country, they go to another place, they are maids, they are cooks, and many of them suffer abuses, physical abuse, emotional abuse. They are away from their families, the children at home, and so many things that they told us. So that was the experience of what we call the Philippines as such, that the migrants who come back, many of them have come, they have spent their savings, they have been thrown out, they have been abused, but the Philippine government has made a lot of arrangements for them to be received back and once again to be rehabilitated, and at the same time perhaps be of use to their families. There are many ways. We also learnt of what's called what we call the seafarers. The many of the men especially go as migrants or the seafarers. They work on the ships, they work on the container ships, they work in the commercial ships, they want cruiser ships, and there are thousands and lakhs of them who are working there. Once again, it's a very tense job. They are on the sea. Are they safe? The dangers of the sea and the way they are exploited. Once they are on the sea, they are almost out for 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. And you can't bargain in that situation. Either you live or perhaps you can't go back. You can't go back. So many of these experiences that we heard. And there were also parishes, there were also parish volunteers who have taken up these ministries to help the people of the migrants in a different way. We were asked to share also our experience, and we told them that our experience of migrants is more of what's called the internal migrants. India is such a big country that the internal migration is also very great. For example, there are so many migrants from the north who come to Bangalore, to the south. There are so many migrants perhaps from the cities, from the villages who move to the cities. And therefore this internal migrant is a very strong migrant. I also share about the migrant experience of Bangalore, how the migrants had to go away at the time of COVID, and many of them walked to the so many places in the north. They walked thousands of miles, some of them with headloads of luggages, with their bags and baggages, with their children all together. They slept in the railway stations, they slept on the tracks, they slept on the roads. Fortunately, there was not much of traffic, but the amount of sufferings that they had. I also told them about their experience, what we know of Bangalore, perhaps from Bangalore, that girl who took her father on the bicycle for 1,000 miles. For 1,000 miles. A girl, 19-year-old girl, who took her father on the bike. She could have said, "It's an old man. I am young. I have life before me." But the values that we have to learn from the migrants, the respect for life they have, the respect for their elders, their family, they will not leave anybody. Everyone will be taken, whether they can walk or not, they will carry them. We have to learn many things from the migrants, and they were quite touched with my experience of the migrants in Bangalore also. So we came together, we came back, and for this migrant, for what's called assembly, there were about 45 of us from India, from Vietnam, from Philippines. There were also delegates from Rome and other countries that spoke to us and gave us a lot of inputs about migration and the migrant ministry in India and abroad. Wishing students prayers and success for the board exams. The month of February end, beginning of March, the exams start. The parents are very tensed. The children are also very much tensed up. Perhaps the whole year's study will be decided in a few moments, in a few hours, in a few minutes, sometimes at the oral exams, in just a few questions. But everyone is tensed up. If they don't get the required grades, they will not only be able to go to the next class, but of course at the certain, perhaps the higher studies, it's very much necessary that SSLC we get good marks so that you get a good college for PU. In the PU you have to get good marks so that you can appear for the CET exams and perhaps appear for medical engineering courses, etc. And so everybody is tense. But what I have to counsel our children is, take it easy. Exam is not the only thing in life. There are many more things. What is important is that you try, that you struggle, you study well. The result, leave it in the hands of God. Perhaps you'll get high marks. Thanks be to God. You may not get the marks that you expect. Thanks be to God. Perhaps sometimes it is a big disappointment that something happens in the exam, that you are not healthy and you are not happy, you are not in a mood, and you do a bad exam. I don't say you fail, but you get low grades. Thanks be to God. Perhaps leave it to the line. Don't be so tensed up, because an exam is not the only thing in life. And remember that there are many stalwarts who have done much better without exams and without their results. You found out. So therefore, perhaps exams is not the only thing. That doesn't mean don't take it too easy. I don't need to study. Bishop has said that we can do without exams. Not necessarily. Try your best. Try your best and leave the rest to God. That's my motto. That's my answer. For the parents, keep cool. Keep cool. Don't frighten the children. Don't frighten the children to say that they have to pass, they have to get these grades. You are making them mad. You are mentally upsetting also their balance. There are some children who are methodic and perhaps they can go on their own. Don't frighten them. Don't perhaps give them certain jolts and jerks. Leave it to them. Let them be relaxed. The day of the exam, let them pray properly. Perhaps if possible, attend the Mass. Take it cool. Starting up to the last moment, the last minute, I don't think it's a good idea. When perhaps you can get one particular idea or one particular thought, but another few more others will disappear. So take it cool. Study till the last day of the exam or the last day before the exam, and on the exam day, take it cool, take it easy, and pray also. I would prefer that every parish where the children are going for exams, the parish priest calls them together, has a Eucharist with them, and gives them courage, gives them perhaps this, what we call, counsel them to say that leave the rest to God. I wish you children happy exams, a happy experience, and surely I will also be praying for all of you. I have said that there are 7 Lenten practices. Today I speak to you about one of these practices called Lenten retreat. What's a Lenten retreat? What's a retreat by itself? The word retreat means that you go to a lonely place because you have something special to do. You have to see some of these executives, corporates, when there is a big meeting. He locks up the whole door. He tells his family, don't disturb me because I have to prepare the files. Sometimes knowing that there will be some disturbance, some children will come and play, perhaps noise here, noise there, they would go to a lonely place in order to be themselves, to put properly the things, the files, the presentations, etc. This is called a retreat. So also in life, the Lenten season is a special season for us where we have to connect ourselves to God. In the month of March, end of March, fortunately, the Lenten season and our academic season or the accounting season go together also. So those who are in the banking sector, the accounting sector, what do? They have to prepare everything, they have to evaluate, they have to put the things together, they have to take the balances. So also for us, I have lived the whole year, how it has been to me, to put these things together and to recollect among ourselves is called a retreat. A retreat is supported by a retreat preacher who preaches on a particular points that are necessary. Perhaps for everybody they may not be the same points, but there are some things that can touch us. Why perhaps I am going astray? Why perhaps I am getting angry? Why is it that I am getting into these bad habits? Why is it perhaps these passions are exciting me or perhaps making me get worked? And many of the times when we are not controlled, our physical moods or physical activities also affect our mental and emotional. There's something called psychosomatic. Psycho means the mental, the emotional, and soma means the body. So sometimes the things that affect us mentally also affect us bodily. Sometimes someone told me that he gets indigestion because there is something that is disturbing him. What's the connection between indigestion and the mental thing? They are connected. So also in our spiritual life, when things are not going okay, not only we spoil our mood, our emotional life, maybe physically also we suffer. So therefore a retreat is very important. I would request each one of you, make a point in this particular 40 days of the Lenten season, of which about 10 days are already over, and take a break, as it were. Go for a retreat, maybe a little far away from your houses, or maybe another parish, a different parish. If it's going to be a residential, that would be ideal. But I can understand it can't be residential. You have to go home. So there are some parishes who organize 3-day retreats or 5-day retreats, perhaps half a day or so that you can go back and come back again. Even otherwise, perhaps we can have the retreat among ourselves. 3 days, just to sit in front of the Blessed Sacrament. Speak to the Lord, and sometimes the Lord also will speak to you. This is called a personal retreat. And therefore, retreat is one of those Lenten exercises which will strengthen us and bring us closer to God. There is a very interesting question that perhaps I was stumped a little when I took it up, but then I also made a little of, I wouldn't say research as such, and the question is very interesting. If I read the question, it's like this: why Christmas is on a fixed date, while Ash Wednesday and Easter dates change always? Once again, why Christmas is on a fixed date? 25th of December is Christmas. I can't decide to have it, let's have it on 20th of December or 24th of December. Maybe some people cannot reach for 25th, we'll have it on 27th of December. I can't change the date. So why is it fixed for Christmas but not fixed for Easter? The Easter keeps on changing. This year it's coming perhaps on the last day of month of March. Last year it was a little earlier or a little later. So every day it keeps on changing. People perhaps, if the Easter was fixed for a particular date, it could be put in the calendar and everyone know of it, everyone prepares for it. Maybe some would have liked to come for holidays, but it keeps on changing, 8 days, 10 days. So the question is, why is Christmas the fixed date, and why Easter and of course Ash Wednesday also keeps on changing? Very interesting question. First of all, Christmas, the date of Christmas is 25th of December. It has come to us from many, I would say from the beginning of the Christianity itself. You'll be surprised to say that the Christmas was not celebrated in the first centuries. Christmas was not celebrated. The fact that Jesus was born was known to them, and Jesus grew up, Jesus suffered, died, but rose again. The feast of Easter was the greatest celebration, the greatest feast for them. There was no other feast. Easter was the feast. And so when did Christmas come? Christmas came about in the 2nd or 3rd century. It started some sort of celebrations, some sort of memory of Jesus was born, etc. and this one. And the month was December, perhaps 25 also, because of the winter season. And we know that Jesus was born in the end of the winter season, but may not be on the date 25th of December itself. We do not know the date. Unfortunately, we do not know the date. But, there was this Christian historian, Sextus Julius Africanus, who reports that from early church, 25th of March was celebrated as the day of Annunciation. So you can imagine, if the day of Annunciation was 25th of March, take 9 months, 25th of December, the Christmas came about. The Christmas feast was celebrated. And for this celebration, the Roman, not only the Roman calendar, what we call the Gregorian calendar, except did not ask him many questions, did not need any change at all, because perhaps they, at the back of their mind, they said that any date that you fix is also not the right day for Christmas, because we don't know when Jesus was born. And so the date from the time of Constantine, that's almost the beginning of the 4th century, 321, Saint Constantine was supposed to have had that, what we call that dream, that appearance of the cross, and from which he declared the state religion of the Roman Empire, Christianity, as the state religion. And so from that time onwards, the Christmas celebration is being celebrated on the 25th of December. There is another, perhaps a small, what we call the non-Christian element also that has come into Christmas, because the Romans used to celebrate the feast of Sol Invictus. Sol or Sole is sun. Invictus is the unconquered sun. And so the pagans at the time from the Roman Empire, they used to celebrate in December, perhaps on the 25th of December or so, the feast of the unconquered sun. And who could be the unconquered sun for us except Jesus Christ? So perhaps some of these pagan feasts were also taken up by the Christian as such, but Christianized and the pagan feasts were Christianized and made into Christian feast. That's called the Christmas feast, which is fixed on 25th of December. The second question is, why is Easter fluctuating or changing? Why cannot it not be a fixed one? There is a reason for that. Easter is a fluctuating or perhaps a little moving up and down, and because Easter is based on the cycles of the moon. The cycles of the moon is very interesting, because Easter, the feast of Easter, is one Sunday after the full moon. After the full moon. So after the full moon is occurring, the next day or perhaps the next Sunday is the Easter Sunday. And therefore the lunar calendar is very much used in this, because for the Jews, they celebrated their Passover. And our Christian Easter comes from their Passover. In fact, the meaning also, the liberation, passing over from death to life. For them it was the Passover of the Red Sea, which was also perhaps from slavery to freedom. And therefore this feast had much meaning for them in order to be celebrated at the time of what's called the lunar calendar. And so you are right in asking that why is Easter day tied up with the moon and sun to begin with? Because we know that Jesus rose from the dead, from the tomb, early on the first Sunday following the feast of Passover. And so, taking into consideration the Jewish Passover, the Church also carries on the Passover, what's called the translocation, the transfiguration, or perhaps the trans-celebration from the Passover to the Easter, keeping the same date of the Jewish calendar. And the Jewish calendar, as we said, depends on the lunar calendar. The Jewish calendar is partly lunar, partly solar. The Jewish rabbis would have to announce when Passover would have to be celebrated in a given year. They announce it before, for the Jews to go back to their country for the Passover. That's why the tickets are very costly during Easter time, because all the Jews are wanting to return and celebrate, and we also keep up the Easter there. This is how we derive the tradition of calculating the Easter. And of course, why moon, why lunar? That's because also the Earth's gravity in such a way, it's a date on which the center of the sun is directly above the Earth's equator. It is called as the equinox, and therefore the date of the equinox is taken up as the lunar calendar year, the calendar celebration soon after what's called the full moon is the Easter Sunday. And 46 days before Easter, before the Easter Sunday, is the Ash Wednesday. So the Easter Sunday is fixed, or rather made known, and from there we calculate 46 days earlier, and that is the Ash Wednesday for us. So this is the explanation that we can give for what we call Easter Sunday, that is moving, and Christmas, that is fixed. I go to the last point, which is, for me, it's also interesting, because many people have told me that we are very happy to hear about the jewels of the Archdiocese, the jewels in the Archdiocese, the jewels of the Archdiocese. And I have also stressed that it's not only jewels, it's not only an object, perhaps only a particular building or particular area. It could be also persons, it could also be associations. So therefore today I speak about the St. Vincent de Paul Society or congregation, the works that are done by them, as one of the jewels of our Archdiocese. You might be surprised. What we call the SSVP. S stands for Saint, and the Society of the St. Vincent de Paul, SSVP, which is quite known in our Archdiocese. They have taken the place of the poor, and as the legacy of the poor and the traditions by which we serve the poor, perhaps St. Vincent de Paul is doing a great service. Just to get you a little backward, St. Vincent de Paul, as you know, is named after St. Vincent de Paul himself. a great saint. A saint who was born in 1581 and lived up to 1666, and he was known for the poor. He is known for his charity for the poor. We can understand these days we speak of our Saint Mother Teresa. For those area, that's in the 17th century, St. Vincent de Paul was something the honor, the regard that we give to Mother Teresa was something that was given in those ages to this particular saint. And he in his own time started a society, what we call the Confederation of Charity or Conference of Charity. He started it. And according to, he wanted to also work for the missions, the education of the priest, etc. And the Society of St. Vincent de Paul was organized into a conference of charity and adopted with formal rules and regulations by a saintly person called Antoine Frederick Ozanam. He was born in the year 1813, and he also did a lot for St. Vincent de Paul. He was humble enough not to name it after himself, but named this society after St. Vincent de Paul, knowing for sure that that man represented the poor. And so St. Vincent de Paul today is a worldwide society, a charity organization, that in some countries you just mention about St. Vincent de Paul, people know you are speaking about the poor. You are speaking about helping the poor, and that's true. And worldwide, I am told, there are about what we call, the General Council has got about 3,100 members, 507 local communities in different countries. And St. Vincent de Paul is one of the societies, though it is a Christian, it is spread over all the continents, even in some places where Christianity is not there. So the 5 continents, 139 countries, and about 8 lakhs active members, 1.5 million volunteers. And this is the sort of the statistics for the world. You will be happy to know that in India, the Indian branch of the St. Vincent de Paul Society started in 1853. It was started in the world in 1833, which means within 20 years, St. Vincent de Paul was brought to India, because India is a country that time needed a lot of help and support the poor, and perhaps the Christians were also strong enough to take it up to say that we will be the volunteers to serve the poor. And so the Superior Council of India was established in 1953. Today there are 82 central councils in 6 regions. Each council is as good as a particular area that is taken, and the councils put together becomes a region. So therefore the 6th region, and Bangalore region, it's not called as Bangalore region, but it's called as West India region, where the Bangalore council is established. And we are very happy to see that in Bangalore itself we have so many people who have volunteered themselves for the St. Vincent de Paul work, and besides there are members who are there. As far as I am told, there are about 720 active members in our Archdiocese. Besides, there are thousands of auxiliary members, and active conferences are 72 in Bangalore, and there is a lot of charity work that is being done. The little statistics that I could gather, they run 3 old age homes. These 3 old age homes are what's called Silver Jubilee Old Age Home, the Jerem Home, and also Mother of Mines also has got a old age home. Besides, they have about 1,085 families, what they call as adopted families. They adopt certain families, helping them for their basic needs, for the studies of the children, for the work, and so many other medicines, etc. They also undertake, St. Vincent de Paul is not only a physical charity, but also a spiritual charity. I have been telling them, when the soul is perhaps formed well, the hands also come out. So therefore the spiritual charity or the spiritual reinforcement, the spiritual empowerment is also necessary, and I am told that This year they had almost 336 spiritual camps that were conducted where people were brought together. I attended one such camp in the NBCLC that was conducted. I was told about 350 office bearers from different councils came together, and it was a beautiful experience that the whole day experienced joy and happiness to listen to the talks. For confessions, there were queues and a big queue. I celebrated the Eucharist for them. So such spiritual conferences, and also besides they help the poor in so many ways, buying the books for the children, giving rations to the poor. At the time of the COVID also they have been very much active. The skill development, visiting the sick, the aged, the hospitals, and so many good things they have done. In our Archdiocese, we have conceded to them for collection of one Sunday that they make outside the church what we call the second collection in order to further for this. I call St. Vincent de Paul a jewel in itself, because a jewel that shines even in darkness. And when we do for the poor, God helps us. And so the Vincent de Paul and the members, many of them are working, many of them are busy, many of them are corporates, but still in all humility to say that I will do my little bit for the poor in the St. Vincent de Paul Society. And so I would say, give all your encouragement, your support, your magnanimity, show it, especially to the St. Vincent de Paul Society, in order to allow them to grow and at the same time to share with the others.
The Shepherd's Voice, which is being presented by our beloved Archbishop, Most Reverend Dr. Peter Machado, the Archbishop of Bangalore, who takes so much of interest and concern in order to bring the various topics, the contextual aspects, in order to inform, educate, and catechize all of us, the priests, the religious, and faithful of this vast Archdiocese. And I'm sure you are enjoying this program, Shepherd's Voice, and I request each one of you to share with your other colleagues, friends, and family and relatives, near and dear ones, so that everyone in this Archdiocese can be more closer to listen to the Archbishop on this Shepherd's Voice, the weekly feature. My dear friends, as I've always told, that this is a wonderful platform wherein we can connect to the Shepherd of this Archdiocese, wherein he brings in the interesting topics in order to increase our devotion and love towards God, and also to know the spiritual matters that concerns our faith. In a very special way, you are most welcome to ask your questions, queries, and you can send them to us at archdblr@gmail.com, and you will also see our mobile number in and through which you can connect with our media center, Ave Studios, and the Archdiocesan Communication Center. Please do write to us your feedback, your opinions. Thank you. Continue to watch and continue to share with others.